My name is Madison Taylor, 35 years old. I work at a major bank. My husband, Jason, is 32, 3 years younger than me. Jason wasn't feeling well, so I took him to the hospital, but it was too late. He was diagnosed with terminal cancer and given 3 months to live. And 3 months later, Jason indeed passed away. We had been married for 6 years. Jason, who respected and understood me more than anyone, was gone. As Jason's funeral began, I was still in disbelief. Suddenly, a woman claiming to be Jason's mistress appeared, declaring, "I have a child with him who's 3 years old. I'll be taking my fair share of the inheritance and child support." So, it has come to this. Yes. I was prepared for this woman to show up at this moment. That's odd because according to a DNA test, my husband isn't the father of your child. I have the certificate right here, would you like to see it? As I showed the certificate to the woman, she held her child and cried out, "This can't be happening. Now, it's time." I decided to confront her with the confessions and truths Jason shared with me on his deathbed. I gathered Jason's mistress, Emily, and his sister-in-law, Sarah, for a discussion. Jason, Sarah, and Emily were childhood friends. They lived nearby and played together since they were little. Sarah called Emily Emmy, and Emily referred to Jason as Big Brother, and Sarah as a Sarah. Madison, do you have evidence that Emmy's son, Mike, is not Jason's child? Yes, I have it right here. Jason realized that Mike wasn't his child. So he took a sample of Mike's hair for a DNA test. It proved they weren't related. Madison slammed down the DNA test certificate she had received from Jason. "Emily, what about this? Kevin is 3 years old, right? If you knew he wasn't Jason's child, isn't that a bit malicious?" Sarah had always been on Emily's side. She knew about the affair between Jason and Emily all along and had betrayed me along with Emily. Sarah, Jason's sister-in-law, had been against our marriage from the start. She was tougher on me than even my mother-in-law. Why did Jason think Kevin wasn't his child? That's easy to explain. Jason's blood type is A, and Emily's is A, but Kevin's is B. How do you explain that, Emily? Where did you get that information? Don't make assumptions, okay? You seem to be making things up because you're shocked about Jason having a secret child. It's pathetic. Besides, Kevin's blood type hasn't been properly tested. When he was born, they just wrote B on the mother's health book. I expected Emily to be difficult, but her brazenness threw me off. However, I had more to reveal based on what Jason had told me. First, let's talk about whether Kevin is Jason's child or not. I thought you would say that, so Jason had the DNA test done. Even then, you're saying Kevin is Jason's child? That DNA test doesn't mean anything. Who knows if they used Kevin's hair? Maybe they used some unknown child's hair to deceive you. When Jason was given his terminal diagnosis, he told me everything. Why would he lie about this? What do you mean? How can Kevin not be Jason's child? Madison didn't want children, right? But Jason wanted them. He said he would eventually leave Madison and marry me. You knew that too, right, Sarah? Yes, Jason and Emily seemed happy together. But now that I know about the blood type and DNA test, I can't fully support you anymore. It seemed Sarah and Emily were falling out. Realizing this could work to my advantage, I pressed on. Emily, you used Jason, didn't you? 4 years ago, you were pregnant with a child whose father was unknown. And you used Jason to cover it up. You thought if you were involved with Jason, you could claim the child was his. That's why you seduced him, right? Is that true, Emily? You knew Emily was promiscuous, didn't you, Sarah? Well, yes. But Emily is young and pretty, so of course, men wouldn't leave her alone. I believed the child was Jason's, so I treated them both like family. Sarah, I didn't lie on purpose. I did have a relationship with someone else, but I was sure the child was Jason's. And there are many ways Kevin resembles Jason. I truly thought he was Jason's child until Madison pointed it out. Emily's voice trembled, almost breaking into tears, seemingly seeking sympathy from Sarah. But this too was part of Emily's strategy. I even doubt whether Emily truly loved Jason. Initially, she just wanted someone to be the father of her child and deceived Jason. Jason, being responsible and having known Emily since childhood, wanted to help. He loved Kevin as his own. But Emily, you had other men even while with Jason, right? Don't lie just to trap me. As soon as Jason was diagnosed, you wrote him off, didn't you? You never visited him in the hospital. And you started going out with other men as if he was already gone. Don't say you loved him. How could I visit him in the hospital as a mistress? Showing up like that? Then why come to the funeral and demand inheritance? And child support as your first words? I already know you forced Jason to write a will. Emily, you did that to Jason when he had only a short time left? No, Sarah. Jason himself wrote in his will to include me and Kevin in the inheritance. He said he didn't want Madison to have any of the estate. Unfortunately for you, Emily, the will you coerced him into writing is now invalid. Jason was aware of your intentions, so he made a new will with a lawyer. And do you think you, as a mistress, are entitled to inheritance? If he loved you, he would have divorced me, right? But Jason never even mentioned the word divorce to me. Huh? Every time, Jason said he wanted to leave his wife. What are you misunderstanding? He was just waiting for the right moment. And you're going around proudly saying, I'm his wife? The affair between Jason and Emily started 4 years ago. Jason's father, who ran a real estate company and employed Jason, passed away 4 years ago. Jason became president of the company after his father's death. But his mother fell into depression, similar to clinical depression. Sarah, still unmarried and living at her parents' home, was concerned about her mother. Jason, a mama's boy, frequently visited his mother to check on her. Emily, reuniting with Jason after a long time, felt her old crush reigniting. Her first love had always been Jason. I remember his mother saying Emily always dreamed of marrying big brother Jason. Jason, 5 years older than Emily, acted like an elder brother. Perhaps leading Emily to misunderstand his affection. But did she have to become his mistress to have him? Right when your father-in-law died, Emily. You got pregnant and seduced Jason into believing he was the father. But I thought something was off. The timing didn't add up. If it were Jason's child, the birth would be 3 months later, not at 7 months. Well, that's because it was a premature birth. A premature birth over 6.6 pounds? Rare, isn't it? You might deceive Jason and Sarah, but not me. Taking advantage of Jason's conscience, using him. Then making him write a will when he got sick is despicable. Madison, you're being too one-sided. I don't know what Jason told you. But he and Emily were happy together. Sure. Initially, he visited his mother twice a week. Then suddenly he started staying over from Friday to Sunday. I couldn't help but notice. Maybe that's your fault too? Maybe you want to play the victim because he had an affair. But you and Jason weren't compatible. That's why he turned to Emily after just 2 years of marriage. From my perspective, Emily, younger and more obedient, was a better choice than you. 3 years older. Working at a big bank or whatever, climbing the corporate ladder. Great story, but a failure as a wife. Jason inherited his father's company, they had enough money. You didn't need to work, but you chose work over family. You were greedy, wanting both a career and a home. Many people can't have both. I was against your marriage with Jason from the start. He chose you even after I warned him. Men sometimes fancy older women, it's like a phase. A kind of brainwashing. With you busy at the bank, home wasn't a place of rest. So he found solace in Emily, who adored him since childhood. You chose your career over having children. He felt more comfortable with Emily, who gave him a child. Aren't you the one who's finished? You both disliked me from the start, didn't you? When I came to greet the family for the wedding, I felt immediately rejected. Just by stepping into the house. You were everything we didn't want, Madison. 3 years older than Jason, prioritizing your career over having children. And refusing to live with our parents. I was aware I was far from the ideal wife you envisioned. But having Jason on my side made me feel strong and unafraid. By the way, Emily, you were there too, right? Were you called as a judge, or did you just show up? I could feel your rejection in your face and attitude. I knew immediately you were in love with Jason. A forever unrequited love. I just can't see any benefit for Jason in marrying you. He always liked homely girls. You, Madison, were the farthest from his type. It seems like you brainwashed him. Despite having a decent salary yourself. You married him anticipating he would inherit his father's company, right? You never gave up your interests, and on top of that, you wanted more financial freedom. You made a calculated decision to marry, didn't you? That's why you didn't want children and refused to live with his parents, right? I don't want to hear that from you, Sarah, a non-working parasite. Didn't you live off the scraps of the company run by Jason's father and Jason? Even though you lived at home, you barely did any housework, right? Sure, since Jason's father was a business owner, you didn't have to worry about money. But you didn't properly care for Jason's mother when she became depressed, did you? You never accompanied her to the hospital and didn't help with household chores. The reason you allowed my marriage to Jason was because you expected me to take care of your parents in the future, wasn't it? Watching you, Jason told me he liked independent women. That was just a novelty for him, right? I think the idea of sharing household duties was unimaginable for Jason, who grew up with a stay-at-home mom. But he couldn't go against you, Madison. Didn't you realize he was just forcing himself to fit in with you? Did Jason say that, or is it just your and Emily's fantasy? Thinking that because I'm not a homemaker, he had to have an affair, that's just absurd. On his hospital bed, Jason cried and apologized to me many times. He said he betrayed me and did an idiotic thing. It's not something that can be forgiven or excused. But when he realized his time was coming, he understood what truly mattered. Getting cancer was my punishment for betraying Madison. I'll accept it, it's my fate. That's what Jason said. Maybe Emily will also receive her punishment one day. Wait, Madison, are you telling Emily to die? That's too much. It's not funny. No. I'll say it today. Emily, did you truly care for Kevin? Who you claimed was Jason's child? I heard you left him to your parents and couldn't stop going out at night. Using the money Jason gave you to frequent host clubs, I know all about it. Not working, leaving your child with your parents, and partying with someone else's money. I can't understand that mentality. You and Sarah always look down on me for working. But isn't that just sour grapes? If you're so envious, earn your own money and spend it on whatever you want. It seems the money you squeezed out of Jason wasn't enough, Emily. Aren't you struggling to repay debts you took from several consumer finance companies? I know you were planning to use Jason's inheritance to pay them off. Just wanting money for your hosts. Your life's joy is going to host clubs where you're fawned over. That's something you could do as a mistress. If you were a wife, you couldn't go out at night like that. I don't want to hear about child rearing from a childless woman like you, Madison. You have no idea how hard it is to raise a child. What's wrong with having some fun at night? My mother willingly took care of Kevin. Being with him was a joy. She was happy to watch him, so I could take a break from parenting. It's a kind of filial piety. It's none of your business what I do. Jason didn't divorce you, so my actions shouldn't matter. But Jason was financially supporting you, right? After his father passed away, Jason became the president and worked hard. Despite others saying he wouldn't do well as a second-generation president. He used it as motivation to protect the company. Do you know his efforts, Sarah and Emily? He worked late every night and studied a lot to gain the employees' trust. That's how he built his wealth. Without knowing this background and only caring about money, I think you're both very shallow people. Wait a minute. Why am I the same as Emily? I was always there for my mentally ill mother, so she wouldn't get any worse. I deliberately didn't help with the housework, so she could do it and stay engaged. I didn't work because I was the only one who could stay with her. I couldn't leave her alone for long hours because of my job. Everything I did was for her sake. Don't talk as if I was just leeching off Jason's money. Then why didn't you visit Jason in the hospital? His mother came once but didn't want to see him weaken, which I understand. Especially since Jason's father also died of cancer. But Emily, despite being taken care of by Jason, never visited him, not even once. That doesn't seem like you, does it? You knew I was aware of your relationship. You prepared new underwear and wore perfume intentionally, always hinting at it. You felt superior in having a relationship while I knew about it. I got the bank to treat my absence as a leave, and I was with Jason every day. Every minute I could be. I was prepared to lose my job for this. Jason, facing his mortality, must have been terrified, but he never showed it. The thought of him spending sleepless nights fearing he might not wake up in the morning is beyond words. And you, Emily, you squeezed money out of him, and even after his death. You're trying to extract more. Your day of reckoning will come. Oh, scary. I hate how you, an old lady, get so emotional. And then your long speeches and showing off about your job. Typical. That's not all. Emily, you've been harassing me, haven't you? Making prank calls to the bank where I work, making impossible complaints specifically about me. Not just once or twice. Sometimes even changing your name to make these complaints. Such childish behavior, like a middle schooler who never grew up. But you can't get me fired that easily. I'm more needed and trusted at my company than you think. Don't underestimate me. If I wanted to, I could sue you. Wow, scary. Now you're threatening me? Complaints to your company? What are you talking about? I'm not so idle as to make prank calls to your bank. So, Madison, it's proven you're exactly the person I thought you were, right? You improved your image in Jason's eyes by visiting him every day in the hospital. And then got him to write the will, right? You say Emily threatened Jason, but wasn't it you? His will didn't even mention his mother or me, not a single word. Isn't that strange? Shouldn't the inheritance from Jason go only to his mother and me, his blood relatives? Both Emily and Sarah are only interested in Jason's inheritance. Jason is no longer in this world, yet their greed surpasses their grief. It's too pitiful for Jason. I'm shocked that Jason had a mistress. But I'm even more shocked that his family and mistress were after his money. I have my share of responsibility for Jason having an affair. I indeed did not want children. But it wasn't that I never wanted them. I was passionate about my job, knowing if I left, I'd never return to this position. Having a child would mean at least a year off work. That would be too late. Opportunities don't come around often. I couldn't sacrifice my career for a child. Though I didn't say it strongly, Jason might have wanted children. Therefore, he probably welcomed Emily's pregnancy, ready to be a father. Even as a mistress's partner. Fortunately, not lacking money, he moved between two homes. Jason himself couldn't choose which one. I wonder how Jason felt when he found out Kevin wasn't his child. That's something I never got to ask. Jason made me the beneficiary of his life insurance, so I have the right to receive it. Regarding the real estate business, Jason had already arranged to transfer the company upon his death. So, neither Sarah nor Emily will get a single penny. What? That's... So, you were behind these major decisions, Madison. Sarah, you're in debt because you expected an inheritance, right? What? Sarah too? Sarah, you're gambling at the casino, right? Emily indulges in host clubs. And Sarah wants money for the casino, correct? Sarah, you've even borrowed money from relatives, and when that wasn't enough, you turned to loan sharks, right? Why should Jason's money pay for your entertainment? And then you count on his inheritance. Did you think of Jason as a money tree? We're family, so it's natural to help each other, right? The only stingy one here is you, Madison. After all, it's your fault Jason got sick. If you hadn't been so absorbed in your work and had noticed his poor health sooner, taking him to the hospital earlier. You were his wife, weren't you? It's because you didn't pay enough attention to his health, diet, sleep, and environment that this happened. You're the one who killed Jason. This is outrageous. I don't deserve to be accused like this. No matter how many years pass, Sarah will never accept and be kind to me. She's just determined to make me the villain. And Emily, despite being just a mistress, is too arrogant. They are both trying to frame me. Likely, Sarah and Emily have been bad-mouthing me at Jason's family home. Finding a common enemy, they've probably bonded over their shared disdain for me. Sarah must have wished for Jason to divorce me and marry Emily. But realistically, Jason never chose to leave me. That's the answer I believe in. Hey, Sarah, can't you do something? Kevin may not be Jason's blood relative. But they've been together for 3 years. That makes him a legitimate child, right? Before he died, Jason said he wanted Kevin to inherit the company. You're blood related to Jason, so you should have more flexibility than Madison, right? Otherwise, I can't raise Kevin alone. I might have to put him in a facility. Jason wouldn't have wanted that. Now she's playing the sympathy card, using the child as leverage. Even Sarah would struggle to respond to that. About that, if what Madison is saying is true, I can't defend you, Emily. I thought Kevin was Jason's child, so I loved and accepted him as part of the family. But now that the DNA test results are out, Emily and Kevin have no relation to the Hidaka family. Is blood relation that important? Not just Jason, but you too, Sarah, welcomed me and Kevin. That's because I thought he was Jason's real child. The relationship between Sarah and Emily seems to be falling apart. From my perspective, both are equally guilty. But I think Emily's methods are particularly underhanded. Why didn't Jason marry me instead of Madison? You always said that when Madison wasn't around. Are you chickening out in front of her? What do you mean by chickening out? I'm just shocked because I heard that Kevin's father isn't Jason. I've been defending Emily and keeping her existence a secret from you, Madison. I was considerate because Emily, being called a mistress, was in a vulnerable position. But now that I know Emily falsely claimed her child was Jason's, that changes things. Turning your back on me now? After all the bad-mouthing about Madison? Could you continue this argument somewhere else later? Anyway, Jason's estate will not be going to either Sarah or Emily. You might have been counting on it. But now it's clear you both saw Jason only as a source of money. The burial is tomorrow. As his wife, I'll perform my last duty. I left Sarah and Emily, who seemed ready to argue, and returned home alone. Neither Sarah nor Emily showed up for Jason's memorial service. After all their talk of being family, they didn't even come to the service. I later heard that Emily was kicked out of her parents' house. Tired of her neglecting Kevin and constantly partying, her parents disowned her. Kevin was taken in and raised by Emily's parents. Emily suddenly declared herself Jason's mistress at the funeral and insisted her child was his. But when I presented the DNA test results, she cried out, "This can't be happening." This was the reason Emily had maxed out her cards, planning to pay them off with Jason's inheritance. With no inheritance, she struggled to make the monthly payments. Her debts at the host clubs were also mounting. I demanded $30,000 as compensation for emotional distress. So, Emily resorted to working a tough night job. Sarah, who borrowed money for the casino, owed a laughably large amount. Having never worked much before, she now juggled multiple part-time jobs. I returned to the bank from my leave. I was greeted by condolences and encouragement from my colleagues. And then, I was promoted to manager. Work truly never betrays.